Blessed Spirit, and welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy you're here today. We are making a very fun fall recipe, and I know that it'll be a hit for the entire family. Now, before I start this recipe, I want to make a little warning announcement. These are still cinnamon rolls. They should still be treated as dessert on special occasions for people that are in weight loss mode or focusing on weight loss as a goal. You might not want to make this recipe until you've achieved that, or for a special occasion. I generally will make this when I have guests, so there's lots of people to share it with, or like I said, on Christmas morning or Thanksgiving morning. This is a really awesome family tradition that we've kind of started. So we are making whole food, plant-based, refined sugar-free, SOS-free cinnamon rolls. And I am very proud of this recipe. The dough for this recipe rises beautifully. You can make it gluten-free. You'll just swap out gluten-free flour for the whole wheat flour we're going to use. And it just acts like dough is supposed to. We are making this refined sugar-free and salt-free, so we have some things that are going to make the yeast activate in its replacement. But I am very, very proud of this. I worked really hard, made tons and tons of variations of it, and this has just turned out. And so lots of cinnamon roll recipes are coming in the future, probably closer to the holidays. I have an apple pie cinnamon roll, a regular cinnamon roll, chocolate cinnamon roll. There's so many different variations I'm gonna have coming out. Today we're doing a pumpkin cinnamon roll. This is a really awesome recipe too because it's not like overpowering pumpkin. It's a really mild flavor and perfect for, like I said, fall and everything coming up. So this is also a 3-step process. We're going to make the dough, then the filling, and then the icing. So it is so good, and it's pretty easy compared to a lot of other cinnamon roll recipes you might have tried. So we're going to get started. The recipe is printed on our website for you guys. You guys can just go to the website, print out the free printable PDF, have it at home. We also have it in our show notes down below. So if you click right below, you should see an arrow. There's tons of information in there. There is our free Facebook group. There's stuff about my membership page if you wanted to. But there's also the recipe posted along with the link that goes to the website. So lots of good stuff. I'm going to walk you guys through it. So in a blender, we're going to make the sweetener that's going to activate our dough, or the dry active yeast we're going to use in a minute. So in a blender, we have 1 cup of plant milk. This is unsweetened, unflavored. You can use any plant milk that you'd like. Okay. Now, to make this sweet, and for us to pick the level of sweetness to activate our yeast, I have 3 pitted medjool dates, or 3 large pitted dates right here. We're going to blend that together and really sweeten our own milk. But I also have 1 3/4 cups of pumpkin puree. So this is just plain pumpkin. You can get it in a can. I kind of stock up now before the holidays, before they sell out. So Trader Joe's has a really great canned pumpkin, and that is also going to be a little bit of sweetness and add to the flavor and to help activate that dry yeast. So I'm going to put that in, and all of the measurements are in the directions, which is linked down below again and on our website. So you guys don't have to take notes. You can just print it off, and this is a really nice video to kind of watch me step by step if you need some extra help or want to make sure you're doing it right, but everything is there for you. Alright, we got our pumpkin. Now I'm going to blend this until it's nice and smooth, until the dates are broken up, and then I will see you guys in a second, and we're going to go to the next step. So this is really easy. Don't get intimidated. You will love making this recipe, I promise. And it's so fun. So if you have kids or grandkids around, have them help you out. This is just such a great hit. Your house smells amazing. I love this. This is my favorite thing to make for the Macy's Day Parade on Thanksgiving. I am such a huge, Thanksgiving is probably my favorite holiday out of the whole year. probably because it's centered around food and I love cooking, but I just, like, Thanksgiving morning is my favorite time, so I love to put on Macy's Day Parade, watch it, and then put these in the oven. You guys are going to be so pumped. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and blend this. I'll see you guys in a second. After the dates are blended, that's really the key point. You just want to let it go until you can't see any more parts of dates. It should be nice and thick. We're going to move this to the stove top. So we are going to heat this till it's nice and warm. I especially like to have a thermometer. You really need to check the temperature of this so we don't kill the yeast. This is the part that, you know, people might make too hot or not hot enough and mess up the recipe. So it's really important to grab one of these, to have it, to check. It doesn't take long for the mixture to heat up to 100 to 110. That's what we're looking for. And then you're gonna go to the next step. So in my new house this spring and summer when we get moved in, I will have it set up so nice and fancy for you guys. I'm just gonna go ahead and do it on the stovetop right now because it's a little bit boring to watch this cook up. But again, I'm just moving everything to a saucepan. I'm gonna heat it on medium-high heat and watch it with my thermometer right here, just so it gets up to around 100 to 110, and then remove it and you can bring it over. So, you know, this is the part that I would say you don't want to just guess. You kind of really want to know what the temperature is because it's really easy. Anyone that's worked with yeast or making any kind of bread or cinnamon rolls in the past kind of know. So I'm going to go heat this up real carefully. When it reaches 110 degrees, I will be right back. Once that's heated, you want to go ahead and open up your one package of dry active yeast. I don't know if it'll work with something else, so try to follow the directions. That's kind of the way to make sure nothing goes sideways. You're going to add your warmed milk mixture. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of stir this gently, and we're going to let it sit for around 5 minutes. This is going to feed that yeast. You don't need sugar of any sort. The dates acts as the sugar, so it's just really a great substitute for it. Like I said, I've tried a million different recipes till I got it right. So I really like it with the pumpkin and the dates to kind of feed it. So I'm just gonna stir it in. And what you should notice when you do this is there should be some lumps that kind of show up. So that's kind of how you know that you've fed it properly. I can kind of see a couple lumps and it comes more and more as it sits. But that's how I know it's working well. So I'm just kind of folding in, making sure all of that dry active yeast is all dissolved. And then you should see little lumps kind of show up, and that means you're on the right track. I find that making desserts is much more of a science versus cooking. So especially for all of our whole food plant-based baking recipes, really try to stay the course with the recipe. Because it can kind of not go so great if you don't. So I'm seeing more lumps show up. That means that it's working beautifully. It's gonna do what I want it to do whenever we go to add the flour, because we do want this to double in size. So we've added the dry yeast is in there with the warmed milk mixture. Okay, over here I have our flour all measured out. Now, I just use whole wheat flour. You can use whole wheat pastry flour if you want. Some people like white whole wheat flour. That's fine. I do prefer this with whole wheat flour of some sort. If you try it with something else like oat flour or spelt flour or buckwheat flour, I don't know if it'll work exactly how I'm intending it to. You can swap this out for like gluten-free flour if you're gluten-free. So keep those in mind, but I do recommend using whole wheat flour, okay? You're gonna need a little bit of extra for making sure nothing sticks and dusting, so keep the bag out. But I did measure out, and here I have 2 3/4 cups of whole wheat flour. So just a little under 3 cups. It's all measured out, all right? I also am gonna use a salt substitute, so I don't want to use salt per se, but I am going to use a little bit of miso. So in here I have 1 teaspoon of white miso paste that we're going to fold in once ready. And as you're looking at your mixture before we add the flour and the miso in, like I said, you should see little lumps kind of show up. Not big lumps, but just a couple little lumps. That means it's going great. All right, we're also going to need to set this aside. So this is going to sit for, I would say around an hour in someplace dark and warm. What I like to do is I like to take some plastic wrap, put it over, and then a towel over that. However you would let bread or dough rise is what you're going to want to do for this. I generally will just cover it twice, stick it maybe on our stove top, and let it sit for an hour. You should see it double in size, especially if you're using whole wheat flour. If you're using gluten-free flour, it might not quite double in size, but it should definitely be larger than when you started. After 5 minutes of letting it sit, I'm going to add in our miso paste. I'm also going to add in our flour. Now, I like to add the flour about a cup at a time. I find that that is a little bit easier. I also like to mix in that miso so it dissolves. So I'm going to add in probably a third of it at a time. And you should see a dough kind of starts to form. Now you can use your hands to knead it a few times before you wrap it. I usually like to do that, make it a little ball. And then I will wrap it and cover it and just let it sit for an hour. This is also great, you know, if you want to make this the night before, it can sit for longer than an hour if you have time. And think about all of the different varieties you can do with this dough. I have so many recipes planned for holiday nut rolls or apricot rolls, or even a bread, pumpkin bread or something like that. It really is a great dough. Alright, once you have everything in there, what I like to do is use my hands at this point. So with clean hands, I like to kind of fold in that flour. And this dough shouldn't be super sticky, but it might be, I wouldn't say it's 100% not sticky. It's somewhere in the way of lightly sticky. That's how I would describe it. If you find your dough is like very, very sticky, you might need to add a little bit of extra flour, but the amount I put should be just enough. I also will say if for some reason your dough, you know, doesn't rise or you have a problem, try it again. This has been a very easy recipe I've tried compared to a lot of other ones that we recipe tested, and it seems to work out pretty well. So if for some reason your liquid was too hot and you killed your yeast, or you end up, maybe you opened up your package and you didn't realize the expiration date, check the expiration date on your dry yeast packet. You know, try it again, because I feel like this recipe is going to be a big hit this year for you guys. Alright, once it's, you know, you can pick it up, it's a ball, I'm going to just knead it just a couple times through, and then I'm going to cover it, place it in a dark spot in our house, and let it rise for about an hour. But you guys can see that's pretty much the size of it now. And I will see you guys in 1 hour for whenever it's ready for the next step. I think I figured out what that weird banding on was in the first part of the video. I have a new camera that I got 3 or 4 videos ago that I've been filming on, so I'm still learning about it. But anyway, back to the recipe. While your dough is rising, I like to just get the filling made and I usually will just keep it aside, and then I also like to do the icing, and then I just clean out my blender, and that's the last time I need to use it. So let's make the filling. And again, all of this is in the recipe, which is down below for you guys. So I have 1 cup of water, and I also have 1 cup of pitted dates. It's kind of like making date paste, right? This is the exact way that I make date paste. Alright, so it's 1 to 1. And then what I like is, because these are pumpkin rolls, we're going to go ahead and add the same amount of pumpkin that we did in the dough. So we're adding in 1 3/4 cups of pumpkin puree. Alright, and then last up we have some cinnamon, and I like to do more of a pumpkin pie spice for this. If you wanted to make these more classic cinnamon rolls, you could just do cinnamon. If you aren't a fan of pumpkin pie spice, you could do that. But I actually like to do 1 tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice. It's really nice, it gives it a lot of flavor, but at this point for the spice, you can play around with it with whatever your family likes. So if you just want to do cinnamon for that part, that's fine. But because these are pumpkin cinnamon rolls, I'm just going to do pumpkin pie spice for ours. And then we're going to blend till it's nice and smooth, and I like to move this to a separate container, and then that way I have the filling done. Clean out your blender and we'll make the icing. It's pretty easy. Another thing too, before I clean this out, is you want to taste this at this point now. It should kind of taste like pumpkin pie filling, but if it's not sweet enough, you can play around with that. If you find it's too sweet, you can add less dates and water next time. So this again is your family's personal preference, so you should make it that. So I always taste as I go, especially when I recipe test or just cook in general. So it'd be a good point to kind of test now, and then you can tweak anything. If you want to add more spice, you can, or less for next time. You could also make this ahead of time if you really want to save on the day of making it, which is pretty awesome, and just have it in your refrigerator to go. I have all of my pumpkin cinnamon roll filling ready. So I'm going to clean this out and we'll make the icing. Ready for the icing. So I like to keep the icing in the refrigerator and ice it before I'm going to serve it, and I like the icing to be a little bit chilled. That's my personal preference. So this is a really great thing just to make ahead as well. Plus you can use this icing for a lot of other things if you'd like, but we're going to jump into it. Last time using the blender, so I promise last time you have to clean it, but it's 1/2 cup of water. I have 6 pitted dates. You can use up to 8 if you'd like. Again, it just depends on your sweetness that you like. You can always taste it and add more if you need it. I have some silken tofu. Make sure you get silken. It's usually the tofu that is best used in desserts or sauces. So we'll say silken right on there, but this is 3/4 cups of silken tofu. It's going to help give it that white color as well for icing. And then I have a little bit of cashews. I have 1/2 cup of raw cashews. And lastly, I have 1 teaspoon of lemon juice. This should be a nice thick icing. You can play around. If it's too thick, you can always add a little bit of extra water and kind of build from there. But this is my favorite. You also could add some extra pumpkin pie spice if you'd like, or vanilla. That's optional as well. All right, and blend until smooth. Once your dates are really well blended in, it's ready to go. So I like to store this, again, in a little mason jar, and I keep mine in the refrigerator till I'm ready to ice everything, but it is such a nice, thick icing, and you can kind of play around with it. The more dates you add, or cashews even, the thicker it'll be. For me, this is the perfect icing for our cinnamon rolls, but you also can taste it as you go, so tweak it to your family's preference. And I like to serve this cold, so I'll just keep this in the fridge until I'm ready to ice. Make sure you get it all out. Alright, once everything has proofed, you should see that your dough doubles in size. And also you want to make sure, again, you have a clean space, you have some extra flour, a rolling pin, your filling nearby. But the pan that you're going to use to store or cook your cinnamon rolls in. So I like, for this recipe, to use something around a 2-quart casserole dish. Something on the smaller size, usually a casserole dish for 4 to 6 people is great for this recipe. If you want to use like a 9x13, like large casserole pan, you might want to double this recipe. They are going to expand, so when you put them in there, they won't be touching when you put them in, but as it bakes, it kind of proofs a second time and they expand like cinnamon rolls do. So like this size pan works perfect. If you want to use something larger, again, you just want to double the recipe. Okay, so I'm going to use one of these pans. I just wanted to show you that I've used both of them before. I'm actually not going to line this with parchment paper. I find that if you use ceramic or glass, it doesn't really burn the bottom of the cinnamon rolls, nothing really sticks, it comes out nice and beautifully clean. If for some reason like you're nervous about it, you can also line it with parchment paper, that's fine. I just have noticed that it works perfect. You don't need to spray, nothing needs done. These turn out pretty great without it, so that's kind of a nice thing. So grab out your Pyrex dishes or ceramic coated and you're ready. So I'm going to use, like I said, a small casserole dish will work. Usually if it serves 4 to 6 people, you know that's great. Okay? If you have something larger, just double the recipe and you'll have more cinnamon rolls. Alright, so we're going to pull this out. I'm going to move some of this aside. Okay, you can see it doubled in size. Beautiful. Ready to go. It should be nice and fluffy. You can pull it out. I like to dust my area with a little bit of flour to begin. Just kind of spread it out. Now, how many cinnamon rolls you get are going to depend on how thin that you make these. So just keep that in mind. And it's pretty much, it's the same exact instructions for if you made cinnamon rolls in the past. So exactly the same. I also like to flour my rolling pin. Just helps from anything sticking. You should be able to pick your dough up and put it on the surface. And I like to make a rectangle shape. I mean, I think that is the best cinnamon roll assemblage. And just try to make it as even as possible. So I just use my hands just to kind of stretch it out. And this is just a great time to get kids or grandkids involved. You guys can already hear, right? Christmas music or maybe some fall music in the background while you make these. It just is a great dough. It rolls out really easily. Okay. And this also would be a really great recipe if you aren't a baker. I find that this might be a good one to start. And then how impressive it is for you to bring cinnamon rolls to the party or to a family gathering. And you can say, I made these. And they're actually not terrible for you. So fun. Alright, I'm going to roll this out. I will see you guys when I'm ready to add the filling. Alright, so this looks pretty good. It's pretty large, taking up a lot of space. I have my filling here. If you end up having extra filling, that's fine, but I find that it does a pretty good job at adding it all in. I sometimes like to add a little bit of the filling to the tops of the cinnamon rolls, so I might add like 90% of this and then just save the bottom. But what I like to do for cinnamon rolls is leave a 1-inch border around it. I'm just going to spread it out nice and evenly. And this is kind of the fun part and the nervous part to roll them, but you'll be fine. You also could sprinkle some extra cinnamon if you wanted to now. You want them extra cinnamon flavored or extra pumpkin pie. So I'm just gonna kind of spread this guy out. It should smell like a pumpkin pie in your house right now. It smells so good. Alright, and then you're going to pick what side you want to start at. So I usually start and make my way this way. So I think I'm going to do that. Okay, looks good. Everything's spread out. Okay. Now I'm going to make these kind of tight, but not too tight that it breaks. You just kind of want to be patient with it and gentle. So I'm just going to start folding it, and you just kind of roll as you go. It's just like regular cinnamon buns, right? Same tactic. So you just kind of roll as you go. Try to pick it up from the bottom once it gets kind of halfway. Kind of force it over. And then if it starts to get really heavy at the end, you can always take the other side and make it neat. And usually at this point, that's usually what I do. So I will just kind of finish the job. That looks good. Alright, so now at this point, once it's all rolled up and you're ready and you're happy with it, you can grab a really sharp knife. And I like to just make our slices. Depending on how much you rolled it out, how big it is, how fat you make them, will really depend on the sizes that you get. I like just kind of, some end up being bigger, but try to get them as even as possible. The guys on the end always don't look the best, so I usually will add some extra filling and try to make them look nice. So let me grab a knife, and then I'm gonna just put them into our baking dish. It's kind of like sushi, so you want to make sure your blade is very sharp when you go to cut these. I like to kind of go in a little bit further, not right on the edge, because again, those end pieces end up being a little bit not as pretty. So I kind of go where I think the first one will be nice, and then I just like to pick it up carefully, be gentle, and you're going to stick it face up in your baking dish. Then I also like to kind of push it to the one corner, kind of personal preference. So this not pretty part I will save and work on at the end. And you can kind of space them out, you know, don't put them too far apart, but far apart that they're gonna proof a second time. And you just kind of keep working. And if some of the filling comes out, that's okay. You can scoop it up and kind of put it back into places that might need a little bit of extra. I kind of do that at the end. Plus, you're gonna ice all of these, so if there's any imperfections, it's all hidden. So I like to remind myself that this is a pretty forgiving recipe for presentation. So if one kind of gets smushed, it's alright. To be honest, my favorite thing to do is to make these while listening to the Harry Potter soundtrack, the first movie. And, you know, it just smells so great. You can also, you know, light a candle or something and really get into the fall spirit. I like to make some apple cider if you're in our membership group. That goes great with this. And so any extra I have, I just kind of like give each one a little dollop just to kind of use up that filling. Kind of like icing for each of them a little bit extra. And it doesn't look the prettiest before you put it in the oven. When they come out, that's really where it gets nice and pretty to look at. Alright, let me show you guys what these look like before, and then I will show you guys when I pull them out. So they do proof a second time in there. So these guys, so you can see that there's definitely some gaps, but they will proof and be totally filled up. So what I like to do, and this is important, is you're just going to preheat the oven, but you're going to stick these guys in now. So I have my oven set to 350 degrees. It's cold. I'm just going to stick it in. I'm setting my timer for 30 minutes, and you're going to let your cinnamon rolls come up to temperature and then bake. So they're kind of, it's a kind of a genius thing that they're going to proof and then bake. So you don't have to let them like cover them again, set them anywhere. Just put it into a cold oven, set it to 350, cook it for 30 minutes, and they're going to come out beautiful. I especially like to serve the cinnamon roll warm with the cold icing that we're going to put over top. And then you can add extra cinnamon or pumpkin pie spice on top. You could, you know, make some nice cream if you wanted to, make another little bit of the filling. You really can have a lot of fun and be as creative with this recipe as you'd like. We love this. Some people like cinnamon rolls for their birthday even, but especially around Thanksgiving morning or Christmas morning, they're such a hit. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's recipe. Again, all of the show notes are linked down below with the recipe. It's on our website. You can print out the free printable PDF and have it. Save it, tuck it in for whenever you're gonna pull out a recipe for the holidays. I think you guys are really gonna like this one. If you like cinnamon rolls, this is it for you, I promise. We're gonna have tons of other variations. Like I said, pumpkin pie is just one of them, but we're also gonna do an apple pie, we're gonna do regular cinnamon rolls, gingerbread, chocolate, you name it. I promise I'll do it. So I will see you guys when they are done in 30 minutes for our taste test and to show you photographs of the final piece. But I've made them a bunch over the weekend. I made them for a potluck here in Pittsburgh this weekend, and they were such a hit. So I will see you guys when they're finished. They just came out of the oven. They are still nice and hot. So I went ahead and spread our icing over top. You could also add some extra pumpkin pie spice before you add the icing or even after as a dusting. It's kind of optional, but it smells so good. I'll post some pictures on the screen of the process, and you can see they puff up quite a bit. So excited. I always try to find where one cinnamon bun touches, and then that's kind of the breakaway for spooning them out. Actually, let me just grab a little bit on top because it's very hot. So excited. It smells so good. Try my Harry Potter soundtrack with making these, light a cinnamon candle somewhere, or have a cinnamon broom in the room when you do it, and you know, just have a really nice and cozy morning. This is like my favorite Macy's Day Parade prep. It just is everything you want a cinnamon bun to be. Oh, I'm gonna pick at this. My husband is really excited to have this. You also could freeze this or freeze the dough. Make life easy on yourself. Make the icing and the filling ahead of time. Make the dough ahead of time. You really can make this really, really simple. And the entire family is gonna love it. So make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if not. I make whole food plant-based recipes every week, multiple times a week. Our next recipe is going to be a plum jam, so you don't want to miss that. And I will see you guys really soon for the next one. Check out down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'm going to go keep picking at this one cinnamon roll. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.